For this assignment, I was keen to experiment with different lighting effects and cinematography styles. I took inspiration from some of my favourite scenes in the films that I love, on top of coming up with my own effect and using similar pre-existing shots to guide me on how to create what began as a concept in my mind. For my first setup, I wanted to create a stylish, seedy looking scene. My approach was to add a slight green tinge to the shots to give them a gritty yet vibrant appearance. This technique is used in Joker a lot as a way of adding to the rundown and murky aesthetic of the neighbourhood in which the film is set. For the shot inside the car, I wanted there to be a distinct difference between the lighting inside the car and the lighting outside the car. I wanted the driver's face to be well lit, while the outside is dark but filled with distorted and out of focus balls of light. This is an effect achieved well in Taxi Driver, as it creates a separation between Travis, the protagonist, and the busy, dangerous city, but the bright lights are a constant reminder that it is closer than he would like it to be. Cinematographer of Taxi Driver, Michael Chapman, believes visuals need to be appropriate, so constantly trying to make a shot look beautiful isn't always necessary, and this could distract from what happens in the scene. This is the angle I tried to come from with this setup, because like Chapman said, lighting is simply a tool to tell the story. I wanted all the light to be motivated, as if it's coming from the street lights and traffic lights, and not to overpower the scene in any way. All 4 shots in this scene used a similar setup of a main street light and 2 didos, with 2 scenes requiring a mini velvet. The first shot was achieved by placing 2 didos on the pavement opposite the subject and placing them far apart from each other. This meant that the light coming from each dido hit the subject on opposite sides. One dido had a red gel while the other had a green one. The red light had to be dimmed down to the lowest setting so it wouldn't overpower the green light, which meant both lights could subtly reflect off the clothes of the subject and the car once it pulled up. I am very pleased with the shot as I think it looks natural and realistic to the setting and theme of the scene. Similarly to the first shot, I placed a dido with a red gel to the left of the subjects and a dido with a green gel to the right. In order to light the driver, I used a Velvet Mini with a white light setting and placed it next to the camera to make it appear like the light was coming from a street light on the other side of the road. In this third shot, I simply used the interior light in the car to light the driver's face as the Velvet Mini looked too bright when I experimented with it. To achieve the bokeh effect used in Taxi Driver, I placed 2 didos with red gels some distance from the front of the car. When shooting, I was happy with how the shot looked, but during editing I realised that the shot was too wide and the interior light was too distracting, so I decided to tighten the shot by cropping the frame. Although this meant that I lost the 2 red bokeh lights, I still managed to achieve the effect I was going for to a degree, as the street lights in front and behind the car were visible in the shot. For the final shot of the scene, I simply used a Velvet Mini, covered by a green gel, to light the scene, and placed it next to the camera, so that as the car came closer to the camera, the green light intensified due to the reflection from the silver car. For my second setup, I decided to take inspiration from intense interrogation scenes depicting a menacing subject. I looked at the Joker's interrogation scene in The Dark Knight, and decided to make it look as if the subject was emerging from the darkness. My approach was to cast a bright light onto the subject's face using a Velvet Mini, but I soon realised that this would be too harsh and create a bigger light than I needed. In the end, I opted for 2 didos and used diffuser gels to tone down the harshness of the light, as well as using the barn doors to control the size of the light. As I didn't have a blackout board, I improvised by using a large black coat. This soaked up any light that was spilling behind the subject. Although the shot looks tense and menacing enough, I think the light is slightly too warm, which could be adjusted by creating my own LUT, but I would always prefer to perfect my shots on set as opposed to fixing them in post. For this third setup, I wanted to create an eerie shot that could be used as the build-up to the jump scare or climax of a horror film. In order to do this, I used 2 didos with red gels and 1 velvet mini with a red gel to fully immerse the shot into redness. The red dido to the left of the camera lit the banisters, while the dido and velvet mini to the right of the camera lit the subject on the wall behind him. To make the shadows of the banisters move, I held a dido, which had a diffuser in it so that it didn't wash out the shot, in my left hand and slowly moved it from right to left. This replaced the redness with large, intimidating prison-like shadows which surrounded the subject. I believe my approach for this setup was very effective as it enabled me to achieve a suspenseful and innovative lighting effect. The red lighting creates a sense of danger, which the bright light, mimicking a car's headlights, makes a lot more subtle. However, the bright light projects prison-like shadows onto the wall and the subject, suggesting that they are still in danger, as the bars connote that he is trapped. This was originally the effect I set out to achieve in my executive summary. Therefore, I am very pleased I was able to do it justice. My fourth and final setup shows the emotion of the characters through the lighting, specifically the colour of the lights and where they are placed within the frame. I think the decision to use a red gel on one of the didos helped to convey the warmth and contentment the girl is feeling towards the relationship, as well as providing a nice contrast colour once the green spotlight appears. Once it appears, it draws the audience's eye, giving them the sense that he is thinking about something important. As the green light becomes larger and larger until it takes over the whole frame, we get the feeling that he can no longer hold in the thoughts and feelings he is having, and that he must tell her what it is he has to say. I believe my approach towards achieving this shot worked well for the most part. However, if I had the chance to redo it, I would remove the bedside lamp, as I find it slightly distracting. And given that this is a surreal and unmotivated lighting setup, I feel I didn't need to include a source of motivated light. This is supported by the fact that in Ratchet, the only physical lights you can see in the shot are the ones that actually turn the frame green. This further exaggerates the point that the character is so overcome by her envy and anger that she must let it out and turn everything around her that colour that represents her emotions.